Just imagine that an inadequate rich son breaks into your house, into your fortress, who claims that he is taking your wife with him for a couple of nights. How would you react? In addition, he begins to openly threaten. I had thoughts of pouncing on him and boxing on his arrogant face, but I decided to act differently. I wasn't in the best mood as I concluded loading my tools into my pickup truck that Thursday afternoon. The client I had been working with for the past 2 weeks seemed indecisive about the staircase project. He continuously requested changes to the initial plan, and the latest modification requested that morning was so extensive that I had to dismantle a significant portion of the work I had already completed. Additionally, I had to consult with the architect and engineer because accommodating the client's latest whim required a redraw of the structural plans. As a result, the following day would unexpectedly be a day off. I'm Kenneth Morrison, the main artist and owner of a small woodworking carpentry shop specializing in designing and constructing high-end staircases. My customers are rich people who own big houses, hotels, restaurants, and offices. They pay more than $50,000 for a special staircase made by me. I'm 34 years old and married to Daphne Tupper, who's 29. She's a successful lawyer at Kramer, Boylan & Hendricks, a law firm that deals with business and intellectual property law. We haven't had kids yet because Daphne wants to focus on her career first. When I got home at 4:30 p.m., I was surprised to see Daphne's car in the driveway. Usually, she works late on Thursdays to have a shorter day on Fridays. I came in through the back door, like I usually do after working at a construction site, and noticed there was a small problem with the water pressure. I found it strange that Daphne might be taking a shower upstairs since she usually showers in the morning or before bed. After a quick change into house clothes, I headed upstairs to investigate why my wife was home so early on a Thursday afternoon. As I suspected, Daphne had recently finished showering and was now donning some alluring black fishnet stockings. A brand new black dress lay on the bed, patiently awaiting its turn to be worn. "Hey, honey, why are you here so early? Am I forgetting something? Do we have plans tonight that slipped my mind?" I inquired. She regarded me with an expression I hadn't seen before, a touch of nervousness evident, though she made an effort to conceal it. Letting out a sigh, she replied, "No, Kenneth, you haven't forgotten anything. I'm going out tonight and you're not. I'll be gone until Sunday afternoon, spending the weekend with Derek Kramer." What are you talking about? Is it a work trip?" I asked. "No, Kenneth, it's not for work. Derek booked a hotel suite for us. I'll be back next week, but this weekend is for him," she replied, sounding determined, though her words sounded practiced. "No, you can't. I don't want my wife spending a weekend with another man." "What is this nonsense?" I protested. "Well, you better accept it, Kenneth, because that's what Derek wants. And I advise you not to cross him," she chuckled. "I see. You're willingly a part of this plan. You want me to just accept it, swallow my feelings and let you go, and then you'll be my faithful wife again after this weekend," I retorted, sarcasm dripping from my words. "I never said it's only for this weekend. Derek has mentioned he wants it to happen from time to time. So yes, deal with it and keep quiet. Trust me, your life will be much simpler if you go along with it," she declared. "We'll see about that. I won't tolerate this, Daphne. You better think about what you're doing, because I won't let that arrogant guy control my life. If you believe I'm a pawn, you can manipulate without any objection from me. You're in for a rude awakening," I warned. By then, she had finished preparing for the evening. I headed downstairs, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and noticed a Mercedes parking in front of the house. Mr. Smug Derek himself walked up to the front door and rang the bell. "Kenneth, that's Derek. Can you answer the door?" she yelled from upstairs. Quickly, I entered a code into the back door alarm panel, set up my cell phone for video recording, and put it in my t-shirt pocket to capture everything. Then I waited in the living room. I had known Derek Kramer since Daphne started working for CBH 3 years ago. Our first meeting was at their office's Christmas party. Derek, a man in his 42nd, seemed confident and friendly with his fellow partners, flirtatious and smooth with female employees and the wives of male employees. However, in the presence of his male employees and the husbands of his female employees, his demeanor, who said arrogance and contempt, I instantly disliked the guy. Daphne stormed down the stairs visibly angry and opened the door. I observed the scene from the living room nursing my beer. "I'm sorry for the delay, Derek. I don't know where my husband's manners are," she said, adopting a subservient demeanor. She lowered her voice to say something else to Derek, but I couldn't hear it from where I was. "Hey, dusty boy, I hear you have an issue with Daphne spending the weekend with me," he thundered, resembling a school principal addressing a child, as he entered the living room to confront me. I couldn't believe the audacity of this guy, thinking he was the boss in my own house. "Hey, shithead, get out of my house or I'll call the cops," I declared, clenching my fists. He burst into laughter and Daphne smirked beside him. "And what do you think the cops will do? Let me tell you, nothing. They won't do anything. You know why? Because, hey, are you filming me, you bastard?" He had just noticed my cell phone. He grabbed it and attempted to stop the recording, but it was password locked. He threw it on the ceramic floor. Naturally, the ceramic won in the fight. "Listen, you smart person. Your wife will spend this weekend with me, whether you like it or not. She'll be with me whenever I want, and your opinion doesn't matter. Do you understand? If you try to interfere, you'll face consequences. Your life will be a nightmare compared to what's coming. So, stay quiet this weekend and don't cause any problems. If I hear about you upsetting Daphne, threatening divorce, or doing anything foolish like contacting my wife, everyone will find out about your suspicious money activities or the illegal stuff with children on your computer." I pretended not to know. It's highly improbable that such information would become public knowledge. I've never been involved in money laundering or had any connection to illegal materials with children, I mechanically replied. "That can be easily arranged. Uploading material to your computer is a simple task. I possess content that could quickly ruin your reputation." I chose to play even more clueless. Illegal materials with children is illegal. If you upload some to my computer, doesn't that mean you're already in possession of illegal material? I asked innocently. That's the distinction between you and me. Some things that are illegal for you are perfectly acceptable for individuals of power like myself who have the right connections. I highly advise you to stick with your working class antics and not bother people of higher standing. Do you understand? I could scarcely believe what I had just heard. Such dialogue would be excessive even in a comedy movie, yet the individual in my living room was speaking earnestly. "And one more thing, please refrain from seeking revenge against me or Daphne. That includes attempting to get back at her by engaging with someone else intimately. I want to avoid any potential transmission of infections from you to Daphne, and then to me, okay? I won't ask Daphne to deny you sex, at least not for now. Can't you see I'm not being unreasonable? Basically, if you do anything wrong, I'll know about it, okay? Now, let's go, darling." They went back to the front door. Daphne grabbed her overnight bag and left without saying goodbye or even noticing me. He called my wife darling. The whole thing was so strange that I couldn't just feel angry. I felt a mix of anger and shock. In that moment, I silently thanked the burglar who had broken into my house the year before I met Daphne. I was so disturbed that I had a full security system installed, including cameras and microphones that could record everything and save it online. I never revealed to Daphne that the system could be set to recording mode while we were at home, ensuring she remained unaware when I activated it just before she opened the front door for that deplorable individual. Simultaneously, I had initiated the recording on my cell phone, serving more as a decoy. My expectation was that Kramer would notice it and figure out a way to turn it off. This would make him feel less guarded and he might speak more freely, thinking he was no longer being filmed. I hoped this could be a valuable source of information for a potential divorce. The scoundrel provided me with much more than I anticipated. The cell phone now scattered on the floor was in fact my business cell phone. After dealing with a wealthier clientele, I quickly realized that providing them with my main cell phone meant being on call almost 24/7. A dedicated business cell phone allowed me to turn it off at the end of the day, and I could attend to messages the following morning. So at least I wasn't without a means of communication. I picked up my personal phone and called my business lawyer and best friend Harry. 10 years ago, Harry Davenport became the husband of my elder sister, Jennifer. They enjoyed a blissful marriage until tragedy struck. 4 years into their union, Jennifer tragically drowned during a trip to Guadeloupe with her 3 friends. Despite the heartbreaking loss, Harry remained an integral part of our family, earning our love and respect. 3 years after Jennifer's passing, Harry found love again in Christine. They tied the knot after a year of dating, and my parents, Daphne and I, were honored guests. Their wedding, to this day, Harry and Christine are like siblings to me. Recently, I found myself in a dire situation and urgently sought Harry's assistance. After telling Harry about the threats from someone named Kramer and what happened during my wife's private weekend, Harry quickly offered his help. He told me to stay inside, avoid contacting anyone, and turn off all my devices. He promised that he and Christine would come over with dinner in an hour, which gave me some comfort. Thinking about what had happened, I realized that my wife, Daphne, had been attracted to Kramer's power and charm. I never thought she'd choose him over our love. It was a tough realization that our relationship wasn't as strong as I thought. I met Daphne 5 years ago at a friend's birthday party. We hit it off, and after a week of dating, we got married the next year. During that period, I remained employed by Mr. Duncan, the founder of the small company where I work. Craig Duncan was highly skilled in woodworking and well known in our local area. Despite his expertise in that field, his abilities in accounting and management were lacking. While still in college, he had hired me as a part-time accountant to handle his bookkeeping. A few months into my role, Mr. Duncan secured 3 sizable contracts that demanded more time than he could spare. Although these projects were challenging, his clients insisted he take them on. Consequently, he asked for my assistance in the field. Initially, my tasks involved running errands, procuring supplies, and providing support with the handling of large pieces. My rapid learning and aptitude for the work became evident, and after overcoming the initial learning curve, I could independently handle simpler tasks or be a valuable asset on more complex projects. While I obtained my accounting degree, my passion for hands-on work led me to pursue an apprenticeship. After a few years, I earned certification and became Mr. Duncan's associate. Upon his retirement, my parents supported me financially, enabling me to buy out his share over a 2-year period. Although the lawyers at CBH viewed me as an uneducated shop worker, I was unfazed. My company thrived, focusing on fewer but more lucrative projects. Over the preceding months, I had hired 2 assistants, and my net income and value surpassed those of many lawyers associated with my wife. Despite this success, even my wife was unaware of these details. My contemplation was interrupted by Christine and Harry, who arrived with Chinese takeout and beer. "Are you okay, Kenneth?" Christine inquired, offering a warm hug. "I can't believe Daphne did that to you. This is so unlike her." Harry, giving me a supportive hug, reassured, "Don't worry, buddy, we'll sort things out. Let's have dinner and then I'll take a look at your recording." I shared the details of Daphne's unwelcoming reception when I arrived home earlier that afternoon. Following dinner, I grabbed my laptop and retrieved the files containing recordings from both the camera and microphone. The conversations were really clear. "I can't believe what I just heard," Harry said. "He's quite arrogant, isn't he?" I replied. "No, more like downright foolish," Harry responded. "I mean, this guy is, 42 years old. He should have about 15 years of experience practicing law. He's not new to this. Yet, he's so full of himself that he never realizes that sometimes you just need to stay quiet. Your smart trick of making him think he wasn't being recorded after he destroyed your cell phone worked perfectly. He took the bait and spilled everything we need to know." "Okay, but can I legally use it since it was recorded without his consent?" I inquired. "Absolutely, this is your home. You have the right to record whatever you want here," Harry reassured me. "So I have nothing to worry about. Is that what you're saying?" I questioned. "No, that's not what I'm saying. We need to be extremely cautious. I did some research on my way here. Chris was kind enough to drive and handle the takeout. It turns out our guy Kramer is the son of the founder of their law firm. You were aware of this, right?" Harry explained, and I nodded. "What you might not know is that his father, Marvin Kramer, had quite a reputation. He wasn't a great lawyer, but most of the judges in the area were his former college buddies. Knowing everyone personally made it easy for him to win most of his cases. Unfortunately, his son Derek has followed in his footsteps. That's what makes him dangerous. He has a wide network of friendly judges, and if he files a case, getting a judgment in our favor will be extremely challenging, no matter how illegal his actions are." "Wow, so you're saying that no matter what I do, I'm in trouble?" "Not necessarily. Winning will be challenging, but not impossible. I have connections too, you know. The key is to gather enough evidence to make a strong case against him. I've got a plan." "But you mentioned that the judges will always side with him," I inquired. "Unless we take the case to criminal court, that's what we'll aim for." Our conversation was interrupted by a knock on the front door. A petite brunette was waiting on the porch. "Hello, Mr. Morrison," she asked. "Hi, Laura, come on in," Harry called out behind me. "Kenneth, meet Laura Foster. She's the computer specialist at the private investigator firm we collaborate with." I took the liberty of reaching out to her after our earlier call tonight. We explained the situation to Laura and had her listen to the recorded conversation, especially the part where Kramer threatened to put bad stuff on my computer. Laura paid attention and then explained the plan. "Okay, there are 2 possible things that could happen. Either they come here during the day, probably with your wife's help, use your computer, change the date, and put their stuff on it, making it look like it happened before Kramer visited. If that happens, your camera system will catch everything. Just make sure it's recording before you leave for work in the morning." She took out a small gray box from her bag. "The other option is if they try to mess with your computer remotely. I'll install this thing before your modem to see who tries to get into your router, and watch what they try to put on or take off your computer. Take a few minutes to transfer all your personal or sensitive data and files onto a flash drive. Then delete everything on your computer. The goal is to prevent them from accessing it. I'll assist with this, just to ensure you don't unintentionally leave any hidden data on the computer, Laura explained confidently. It was evident that she was well versed in her field. Harry chimed in. Let's get started. Kenneth, currently your only evidence against him for blackmail is a recording. If you try to pursue legal action with just that, your case might be dismissed quickly. Public opinion doesn't see blackmail as a very serious crime, and the judges he knows may support him. The ideal scenario would be if Kramer actually uploaded illegal material to your computer, and then reported it to the police, claiming he has evidence of you possessing illegal content. In that case, we would have a trail indicating that all of this occurred without your presence at the computer. With the advance warning you received from Kramer, which you recorded, we would have enough evidence to build a strong case against him in criminal court. His judge friends would be less likely to support him if he's involved in criminal activity, especially those related to illegal materials with children, and they would distance themselves from him. I find that disturbing and twisted, I remarked. Yes, but Kramer is just as twisted. One more thing. Can you refrain from using your computer for the next few days? If Kramer proceeds with his plan and reports you, the police inspectors may want to check the computer records to confirm if anyone accessed the illegal files post-upload. If you avoid using it, the records will remain clean, which would be more advantageous for us. Also, ensure that your cell phone doesn't connect to your home Wi-Fi in the coming days to prevent them from using your phone instead of your computer. Laura installed the surveillance module and erased all sensitive information, including my company paperwork, from both my computer and cell phone. The module will forward us copies of all access requests. I'll reach out to Harry and you once we have some information. Best of luck, guys, Laura informed us before leaving. All right, let's get back to more practical matters, Harry suggested. Kenneth, do you want to start the divorce process now? Or do you prefer waiting until Daphne returns to see if things can be resolved? No, I want a divorce as soon as possible. I can't stay married to someone easily influenced and corrupted by self-proclaimed powerful men. No hesitation, I want out. All right then, I'll contact Claudia Milton tomorrow. She's the family law expert at my office. Good, fair, and efficient. I'll ask her to reach out to you ASAP. You'll like her, Harry assured me. We continued discussing matters, and I provided Harry with the access code to my recording system for real-time updates and cloud-stored information. Christine and Harry departed around 23 hours. I took a Zopi clone and fell asleep within half an hour. At 8:30 the next day, Claudia Milton called me after talking with Harry, who explained everything about my situation. She asked me to come to her office by 11. During our meeting, Claudia felt sorry for what I was going through after hearing about Derek Kramer's bad reputation. She told me that since I bought the house before meeting Daphne, and her name wasn't on the deed, the house still belonged to me. Since we didn't have any kids, the divorce process would be simple. Worried about my company, I asked if I might have to sell it and split the money. Claudia called Harry to address my worries, and he quickly assured us, don't worry, the marriage contract clearly says that your company is yours alone, and she has no right to it. They might try, but I checked, and legally, they can't. The meeting with Claudia ended at 12:30, and I took care of financial matters as she instructed. She took charge of the situation, assuring me that everything was under control and Daphne would be served the divorce papers at her office on Monday. Later, I replaced my damaged cell phone and spent the rest of the weekend working on the yard and catching up on my favorite TV series. Despite my lingering anger towards Daphne, I couldn't fully grasp the reality of the situation. While I anticipated grieving for the marriage eventually, at that moment, my emotions were still too intense. The prospect of Daphne returning home on Sunday loomed, and I debated whether to sleep in the guest room or relegate her to it. Ultimately, I decided that it was my house, and she had walked out on me. Refusing to share my bed with her, I moved all her belongings into the guest room. Subsequently, I purchased a new lockable doorknob and installed it on my bedroom door, keeping the key in my pocket. I activated the surveillance system to record. I observed Daphne engaging in a prolonged French kiss with her boss before exiting the car and waving as he drove away. I was seated in the living room seemingly engrossed in a book when she entered. "Hi honey, how was your weekend?" she inquired, appearing anxious. Despite her attempt to conceal it, I could discern that she wasn't as composed as she projected. I refrained from acknowledging her, maintaining my focus on my book. "Fine, continue with your sulking. Derek was spot on when he mentioned you would act this way, suggesting you lack the intelligence to understand my needs or the maturity to accept your shortcomings." She ascended the stairs. As she left, I began counting. 1, 2, 3. Kenneth Morrison, what's going on? Did you put a lock on our bedroom? On my bedroom, I responded calmly. All your belongings are in the guest bedroom. You'll be staying there until you find an apartment. What the hell? Wait until I tell Derek about this. This was not part of the agreement. Agreement? What agreement? I haven't agreed to any of your partner's nonsense. Either you stay in the guest room or leave. Perhaps Kramer's wife can accommodate you in her marital bed. She glared at me, not uttering a word, stormed into the guest room, slammed the door. I followed her upstairs, yelling through the door. Speaking of agreements, what was in it for me, by the way? No response. I returned upstairs. After 15 minutes, my phone began buzzing with text messages from an unfamiliar number. What's this I hear, cuck? You won't let Daphne into her own room. I thought I explained things clearly to you. Even someone like you should comprehend. For tonight, I'll overlook your childish crisis. Tomorrow, you'll prepare Daphne's favorite dinner and apologize for your behavior. If you behave the rest of the week, I'll permit her to be intimate with you next weekend. Fail to comply, and you'll discover my threats are genuine. Follow my instructions, no questions, clear. I couldn't believe what I was reading. This person bordered on being heartless, delusional, and foolish. I chose not to respond, but took a screenshot of the conversation and sent it to Harry. Harry responded 3 minutes later saying, "Incredible, this guy thinks he's top-notch, but he's just a first-rate idiot. Keep the conversation intact and don't bother replying to him." Kramer continued to send a couple more acknowledgement requests, to which I remained silent. Eventually, he stopped reaching out. I didn't encounter Daphne again that evening. I went to bed. I locked the door and kept the recording system on. I messaged one of my assistants, telling him I'd be late the next day. The morning after Daphne left, I got up and prepared for the day. While having breakfast, I downloaded the recordings from the previous night. Daphne hadn't left the guest room until that morning. She showered in the guest bathroom and left without eating breakfast. Surprisingly, she didn't try anything with my computer like I thought she might. Then, I got a text from Claudia Milton confirming that the divorce papers would be served at 10:15 that morning. I also informed Harry about it. Have as good a day as possible, considering everything. Before heading to the shop, I ensured my home system was still recording and set to send an alert to my phone if activated. I had an 11Z meeting with the architect to discuss the final modifications for my current client. I kept myself occupied with small tasks until the meeting. I anticipated a call from Daphne shortly after being served, but it never came. At 10:45, I messaged Harry, expressing my surprise at Daphne's lack of contact. This means she's talked to Kramer about the divorce papers. They might already be scheming. I'll call Laura. Stay tuned, Harry replied. The meeting went smoothly, surprisingly allowing me to stay focused. I spent the rest of the afternoon doing maintenance on my tools and tidying up the shop. At 15:12, I received an alert on my cell phone. I texted Harry that the show was in motion. He responded with a thumbs up. I accessed my system and observed the live events unfolding in my house. Daphne had entered accompanied by an unfamiliar man. They proceeded to our home office where they activated my computer. The two of them maintained minimal conversation. The man spent a few minutes deciphering my password, followed by inserting a flash drive into my computer and engaging in suspicious activities for around 10 minutes. Fortunately, I managed to capture clear images of his face. Meanwhile, Daphne went to the guest room and packed her belongings in garbage bags, as her suitcases were apparently in the master bedroom closet. Once the man completed his tasks, he shut down the computer and informed Daphne of his departure. She finished packing and left the premises at 15:56. Harry contacted me shortly after the recording ceased. "All right, Kenneth, head home and act normally. I suspect they will involve the police tonight or tomorrow, so be prepared for an inspector's visit. Obtaining a search warrant takes a few hours, so anticipate their arrival tomorrow." Could I get arrested? I asked Harry about the possibility of an arrest. He said it's possible. If it happens, he advised me to stay quiet and not answer any questions. He told me he had contacted Stephen Lindsay, a trustworthy criminal defense lawyer, and shared all the important details, including the recordings. According to Harry, Lindsay assured him that this would be an easy case to handle. I gave Harry the code to control my alarm system recording in case of an arrest. After discussing a few more things, we ended our conversation. I felt extremely anxious as I drove home. The evening passed without any police visits, calls from Daphne, or unpleasant messages from asshole Kramer. I made myself a sandwich and ate while watching TV. Although tempted to inform my parents about the situation, I decided to wait until the storm had passed. Explaining computer system tampering and cloud-stored videos to my mother seemed futile and likely to cause unnecessary worry. The following day, while I was at the store, I received another notification indicating that there was an intruder in my house. Following the same procedure as the previous incident, I immediately texted Harry and accessed my security system. The police had entered my residence and were attempting to deactivate the alarm. It seemed they had successfully shut down the system as communication was lost. Harry informed me that he had witnessed the events and forwarded the images to Stephen Lindsay. About an hour after the police came to my house, 2 officers showed up at my shop and arrested me. They put handcuffs on me and took me away in a police car. They quickly told me about my rights and started asking questions, but I didn't answer any of them. When we got to the police station, they took away my phone and wallet and put me in a cell with 5 other people. We didn't talk much, everyone just stared at the floor. After about 3 hours, a guard came and took me to a room where I was supposed to meet my lawyer. "What's going on?" I asked the guard, but they didn't say anything and left me alone in the room. The door opened again 10 minutes later, revealing Derek Kramer with a triumphant grin as wide as the Golden Gate Bridge. He sat across from me without uttering a word. I maintained eye contact, offering no response. Once satisfied with establishing his dominance, and making it clear that he considered himself victorious in this battle, he gave me a triumphant look and began speaking. "Now, do you understand the gravity of the situation?" I remained silent. "I asked you a question, Morrison. Answer me, you insignificant bug." Once again, I refrained from responding. "It will be your testimony against mine, Morrison." A carpenter's word versus one of the most prominent lawyers in the city. "Can you guess the outcome?" he inquired, his perpetual smirk in place. He rose from his seat. "All right. It appears that you need some time to think over what I've shared with you. Let's reconvene tomorrow morning for further discussion. Maybe spending a night in this communal cell with your friends will help you gain some clarity," he stated before exiting the room. I was escorted back to the cell where there were now only 4 other individuals. Later that afternoon, another person came to see me. I was brought back to the same meeting room where a tall blonde man awaited me with a stern expression. "Don't mess with me" demeanor. He stood up as I entered. "Good afternoon, Kenneth. Pleasure to meet you. I'm Stephen Lindsay. Feel free to call me Stephen. Harry contacted me earlier today, expressing difficulty reaching you. Given the circumstances, we suspected you might have been arrested and brought here." I proceeded to recount all the events of the afternoon, including the unsettling visit from Derek Kramer. Stephen's jaw visibly dropped, though he remained silent. "All right, you'll be appearing before a judge tomorrow morning. Expect a substantial bail, but don't worry, Harry will handle it. I know it's going to be a tough night, but stay strong. Both Harry and I are here to support you. In the meantime, continue refusing to answer their questions. I've officially taken on your case, and I'll ensure Kramer doesn't bother you again." The next day, I faced the judge on charges of possessing illegal materials with children, maintaining my plea of not guilty. The bail was set at 25 Kelvin, and I was released later that afternoon. I couldn't leave the city or talk to my soon-to-be ex-wife, Derek Kramer, or anyone from their office. But I could still work in my shop. They gave back my phone and wallet, and Stephen took me out for lunch later. I didn't say much at the police station yesterday because I was worried about privacy. But after making some calls and looking into things, I found out some interesting stuff about Derek Kramer. Let me tell you about it. First, it takes a while to get a search warrant, and they can't arrest you until after they find something. In your case, they arrested you before finishing the search. Second, even though you couldn't contact me or Harry, Derek Kramer was allowed to see you. This seems like a setup, which is definitely against the law. But Harry mentioned that Kramer has influence over many judges, I pointed out. "Not all of them," he replied with a wink. "You can't build so many friendships without inevitably making some enemies. I have no idea what I'll find at home. I hope my wife and her conniving partner didn't take everything. Don't worry about that. Harry went to your place right after the police left, rearmed the system and set it to record again. No one showed up. I returned to the shop to retrieve my car, and then headed home for a well-deserved and necessary shower. The architect had left a message, confirming the updated plan had received client approval. This was a positive development, as it meant I could return to work the next day and divert my mind. Upon reaching home, I discovered a chaotic scene. Every inch had been searched. Besides the manipulated computer, I knew they wouldn't find anything incriminating. As I tidied up, I couldn't help but shed tears for the first time. Just a week ago, I was a content man in what I believed was a solid marriage. Now, I was a suspect in a crime, facing divorce, and manipulated by my wife's boss. What had I done to deserve this? At least there were no reporters bothering me. They were likely preoccupied with the newly uncovered multi-billion unexplained hole in public finances to care about someone like Kenneth. Towards the conclusion of the subsequent week, Stephen finally reached out to me. With a significant revelation, all charges against me had been dropped. It appeared that the assigned inspector, a formidable individual, particularly sensitive to issues of blackmail, was not one to be trifled with. Apparently unswayed by Kramer's maneuver, the inspector promptly ensured the filing of charges against Derek Kramer for blackmail, evidence fabrication, and possession of illegal materials with children. Daphne, on the other hand, would face accusations of conspiracy related to these crimes. Shortly after my conversation with Stephen, Harry called me, inviting me to dinner that evening. While en route to Harry's house, Claudia Milton, my family law attorney, contacted me. Kenneth, Daphne's lawyer, called me this afternoon and conveyed her readiness to sign the divorce papers without alterations. With one condition. She insists on having a 1-hour private meeting with you, and she suggested it could happen at my office. Even though seeing Daphne was the last thing I wanted, I thought the meeting might help speed up the divorce process, so I agreed to it. The evening I spent with Harry and Christine was a nice break, the first relaxing one I've had in 2 weeks. Christine made a delicious meal of coconut shrimp and rice, which helped me feel calm when I got home. The meeting with Daphne was set for the following Wednesday, and despite being the victim in this situation, I couldn't help feeling nervous. When I arrived, Claudia directed me to her office and gave me some advice. Kenneth, I'm unsure about her intentions, but I must caution you. There are pending criminal accusations against her. Do not provide any ammunition. Avoid saying anything that could be used against you in court. We can't search her for recording devices, so be mindful that she may be recording you. Okay, thanks for the warning, I replied. I was ushered into a small private meeting room where Daphne was already seated. I anticipated encountering the same spiteful and arrogant Daphne I had known in the preceding weeks. However, the Daphne before me appeared to be a shattered individual. Despite feeling a surge of compassion, the vivid recollection of her questionable interaction with Kramer before their weekend getaway swiftly dispelled any positive sentiments I might have harbored. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Kenneth. What could you possibly have to say to me, Daphne, after all you've done? Her tears began to flow. Kenneth, I'm so ashamed of my actions towards you. You're an amazing husband who didn't deserve any of that. I was completely ensnared by Derek Kramer's influence. When I learned that the charges against you were dropped and he and I might face accusations, it jolted me out of that spell. I can barely face myself in the mirror, and all for the most pitiful encounter. For the next 30 minutes, she continued to self-reflect, offering an impromptu analysis of her own behavior. She didn't probe me for information or ask any questions. I get it, Kenneth. Our relationship is over. If I were you, I'd also want a divorce. I don't blame you for wanting to end things. I've quit my job, and I told Derek Kramer I never want to talk to him again. I went back to my parents' house and told them everything. They're really mad at me. Let's just say it's not very friendly or welcoming at home right now. I looked at her quietly. Honestly, I didn't have anything clever to say about all of this. She had created her own situation, and now she had to face the consequences. The upcoming months, and perhaps even years, will be challenging for me, Kenneth. I'm uncertain about what life has in store for me. My only hope is that eventually, after everything settles, we might have the chance to be friends. That's a distant prospect, Daphne. Very distant. We'll see when we get there. Best of luck. I stood up and exited the room. A part of me still held affection for her, but a reconciliation was out of the question. Despite my initial desire for revenge, circumstances had already turned her into a miserable person. She had learned a lesson, and there was no need for further retribution. Daphne secured a plea bargain by fully cooperating with authorities against Derek Kramer, leading her to relocate to another city. I lost touch with her thereafter. When accusations against Kramer became public, 2 other men came forward, lodging a complaint against him for blackmail. Kramer received a 12-year jail sentence. As the police possessed recordings of all my interactions with him, my testimony wasn't required. After Kramer's conviction, I initiated a civil case against him and securing a $2 million settlement with a significant portion going to Harry. Despite feigning outrage, I was pleased to reward Harry for his invaluable assistance. My business is doing really well, and I'm almost done buying another company that makes special doors, which will make my business even better. I have 6 employees who feel like family, and I'm happy with how things are going. Harry and Christine invited me to a barbecue a few days after my divorce was finished. I met Christine's sister, Kathy, there, and we really hit it off. We've been dating for a few weeks now, and we'll see where it goes. A few weeks after I settled the lawsuit against CBH and Kramer, I went to visit Kramer in jail. I made sure the guard stayed with us during our talk. When Kramer saw me, he tried to leave, but the guard made him stay. Ignoring his insults, I casually asked, "Starting trouble? Huh. Interesting. Heard your wife Jessica filed for divorce. Perhaps I should ask her out for dinner and offer her a memorable night." Enraged, Kramer responded, "You bastard. If you do the cutting him off," I grinned. "Don't waste your pathetic spit, asshole. I've already done that. The hummingbird tattoo on her upper left thigh is quite lovely, isn't it, cuck?" He turned crimson, resembling a beet. Once again, he was on the verge of issuing threats. However, in the final moment, he grasped that such an approach wouldn't further his cause. Regardless, I'm not here today to discuss Jessica. I just wanted to inform you that you're a fool who needs occasional reminders of his own foolishness. Consider this: menacing a man in his own home and outlining in advance the consequences if he doesn't comply with your absurd demands isn't exactly a display of intelligence, is it? Even a carpenter would recognize that. Let's say on this occasion, you're the one left in the dust. I burst into laughter while he simmered with anger. "Oh, and weren't you the one who asserted that possessing certain materials was illegal for a simple man like me, but perfectly acceptable for a powerful figure like yourself? You really impress me with your power. It's quite something. Maybe it's the jumpsuit. It looks great on you." Kramer was so angry that he seemed like he might lose it. "Before I go, I have something that both Jessica and Daphne thought you might want to see someday," I said, handing him a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it and looked at it for a moment. "What is this?" he asked. He inquired. "Case in point," I chuckled. "This is a depiction of female genitalia, commonly referred to as a pussy." I pointed to a specific spot on the drawing. "They wanted you to know that the arousal point is here." Second story, guilt versus lust. Been seeing my best friend's husband. I'm a bad person. Using this as somewhat of a confession due to my guilt. Using alias names for obvious reasons. So some done context. My best friend for over 20 years is awesome. We have been through so much over the years, good and bad. Even shared some naughty nights before we meet our hubbies. We were that close. She was my maid of honor and vice versa. Anyways, so she'd been married to her hubby for about 8 years. They seem on the surface of it a great couple, much like me and my husband. So one day I got a message from Pete asking if I wanted to catch up for a drink. I was curious and skeptical, but he said he really needed to talk to me about Sarah, so naturally I meet him. When we met at the bar, we talked about random things, and he started telling me about how his sex life is boring and he's worried that his partner isn't attracted to him anymore, and so on. Now, Sarah has told me everything, and I know for sure that this isn't true. I also agree that he's actually quite good looking and in great shape because he works a physical job. I'm not sure why their sex life is dull, but I tried to support him by complimenting him and reassuring him, and so on. After this perfectly innocent meet, we continued to exchange text messages, and I even started to open up about my marriage and things troubling me in my relationship. This went on for about a month or so, and the messages started to take a turn. Reassuring each other started to turn to flirting with each other. Innocent pictures of the sunset turned into half-naked post-gym selfies, etc. We were trying to convince each other it was wrong and we shouldn't be talking the way we were talking, but neither of us wanted to stop. Then, one day after my work drinks and a Friday night, he convinced me to meet him at a hotel lobby bar in the city, short walk from my work. I reluctantly agreed, knowing it was a bad idea. Once I got there, we had a few drinks when he told me he had gotten a room for the night, and would I like to see it. The most of me was saying no, but next thing you know, I'm in the room having sex with him. My BFF told he was good in bed, and now I was finding out for myself. I left saying this was wrong and it won't happen again. I meant that, however, I say that every time to him after. This has been going on for about 3 months now, and both our respective partners have no idea. Now I truly love my husband. He's an amazing guy, great provider, great father to our kids, which is why I feel so guilty. This thing with Pete is nothing but pure lust. He's handsome, sweet yet dominant, and great in bed. He offers something my hubby can't, and I can't stop myself. What will win, my guilt or lust?